video on something that I want to have a play around with. So I want to have another go at making courgette pasta because I made mushroom pasta the other night, and I kind of changed the way I didn't change the way I did it because I've never really kind of done it before. Anyway, so what I did do was I saved the stalks and pureed them up into the pasta. It'll be the video, the one that's before this, probably. And I kind of thought I want to have another go at courgette pasta, and I think we can do something similar with that. Right, so what I want to do is, this is going to be tricky, I want to just take the outside of the courgette, and then the inside we're going to use as the basis of the sauce. So the pappy bit in the centre, it's not really used in an ornament. We're going to use that base of the sauce. So what am I going to do? We're going to cheap olive oil. Well, no, there's no such thing anymore, is there? Because of the droughts in Spain. So plenty of olive oil though. This was probably bought before the droughts in Spain. So we're going to cook these down like that. We're going to get a little bit of colour on them. I don't think I want more than one courgette. And then these courgettes I'm going to cut into cubes. It's a while since I have done, I forgot what these cuts are. I learnt them all at college. Julienne and Brunoise and Paysanne and all those. I can't remember which they all are, but let's call it a large-ish dice, but we're not going to be too fastidious about it. That's fine, that I'm not bothered about that. But what's the best way to do this though? I want them kind of quite uniform. Maybe I want them a little bit smaller, but it'll be fine. They'll cook down and they'll get smaller in the pan, won't they? Yes. So that will be fine. I'm not going to use that. So, and then we'll go across them like this. I once, with this knife, took the end of my finger off. It was horrific. The first day at work at a new restaurant, and I took the end of my finger off because this is a serrated pastry knife and not designed for slicing vegetables. But I was doing cabbage and it took like that part of my finger off. It was awful, and the chef was very annoyed with me because he was very busy, and I said, have you got any plasters? To be honest, he was very annoyed with everyone all the time anyway. But it was back in the 90s when things like that were more acceptable for chefs to be in bad moods all the time and fire staff for the fun of it. But anyway, so we'll use those as well. Then, so turn that down a bit. We're going to cook these at the same time. Yeah, we only need one courgette, we don't need two. So what we can do is then, because we're going to cook them both at the same time, and we've left the pappy inside a bit quite big, we can fish that out later. So salt. This will draw moisture out, not too much. Pepper at the start and then pepper at the end as well, because it changes the flavour as we cook pepper. The flavour changes, so sometimes we want pepper at the start, sometimes we want it at the end, and sometimes we want it at the start and the end to get like a contrasting pepper flavour. So we'll cook those, we'll give them a little bit of colour. I really should have watched the video that I made on this before, but yeah, we might as well just wing it. That's much more fun, isn't it? Because if we don't faff around, we don't find out, do we? So cook those until they're nice and soft, and then we'll be back. I have fried off courgette. We've removed some of the oil, and then so those are the big bits of our courgette. We're going to puree those down. So we've left some olive oil in the pan, like that, and then we're going to have water. So we're going to cook it more like a risotto. So that and like that, it will start to melt into the pan. Melt into the pan? Yeah, I know what I'm talking about. It'll start to melt into the pan. We just need to give it a little bit of time. Not have the temperature on too high. And then it'll just go into the pan a little bit easier. So we'll cook that, and we'll cook it like a risotto. So a little bit of water. Keep it moving around, and what we'll find is that the oil will combine with the water, so making emulsification into each other. And then the starch will come out of the pasta, and that will mix in with the water and the oil, and that'll start to form a sauce. Fingers crossed. Well, yeah, not fingers crossed. It will work. Although it slightly works better when it's animal fats, because we're going to be adding cheese to this. So there we go. So that's kind of gone into there. Right. So temperature up slightly. Keep an eye on it. Keep it moving around. And then cook it so it's almost al dente, and then we'll be back. So pasta is cooked. As you can see, we've got the start of a sauce on the bottom. Can you? Yeah, there you go. So all the starch and the oil combine to start forming the basis of the sauce. Now I have pureed up the courgette centre with a little bit of water. So that, excuse fingers. That tastes nice. Nice and courgette. So that's going to start being the second part of the sauce. I'm not going to waste any of that. That and there. So we've got a little bit of, it'll cool down with that since I cooked it. So we just need to put a little bit of heat in this. So as you can see there, it's already starting to form a pretty decent sauce. So we don't really need any cheese in it as such, but we're going to put some in anyway. Cheap supermarket hard cheese. It's cheap because of its age. So it's not aged particularly very long. It's not been sat in someone's warehouse aging slowly. So we haven't got the cost of that aging to kind of factor into the cheese. So it's cheaper. Also, it might be a lower grade cheese that didn't quite hit the quality standards of something like maybe a pecorino or a parmesan, something like that. So there's nothing wrong with it, and also because it's a younger, harder cheese, it melts a lot easier. So do we want? Now we can always add a little bit more boiling water. Right. So don't need to faff around mixing this into hot water or anything like that. We can grate it straight onto the pasta and then move the pasta around to melt it, and then we'll put the courgettes in last minute. If we put the courgettes in now, the cheese will want to clump onto the courgettes rather than mix into the sauce, so we get a cheesy saucy pasta. I'm not doing measurements, we're just going by eye, but there was 200 grams worth of pasta, and then we've got another courgette, so we can weigh how much the courgette weighed. Now, how much courgette was there? Oops, no, can't mixing that around. So me doing two things at once just goes to show that you don't have to be too fastidious when you make things. So how much is that courgette weigh? 350 grams worth of courgette. So that cheese is melted into the sauce, and we have now got a cheesy courgette flavoured sauce. Let's just add a bit more water, and then we'll just add a little bit more cheese. It's not going to be a completely smooth sauce because that courgette is not completely smooth. So there is going to be little bits of sauce in there. A bit more cheese. I really should do an experiment where to see how much cheesy sauce we can make from a certain amount of pasta by just adding more water and then more cheese in. But there will be a limit to how much we can do that, because the cheese will start to cool the pasta down, which means that it won't melt just quite as easy. So that will be a factor that we have to kind of consider into it. and we can't heat the cheese like so. Ooh, the temperature was on. So, good job of that didn't split, isn't it? So, if we heat the cheese, it wants to split. Luckily, it was on a low enough temperature that it didn't. So, that like that. Let's give that a taste. Are we recording? Oh, yes, we are recording. Give this a bit of a taste. That's nice. A bit more pepper. And then, you know, fleshy ground pepper smells amazing. And then this, all this courgette can go in. And that bit of oil as well. That's not going to split the sauce. Ooh. We don't know though, do we? It might do. And then toss that all together like that. So we can still see that. And then the courgette get covered in the sauce, the cheesy sauce, rather than wanting this, the cheese wanting to clump on the pasta. And then we can do the, see, that looks good, doesn't it? Although the pan's a bit dark, but looks good. And then we can do the fancy chefy thing where we get the ladle and we get the, oh, I need more. Get the ladle and we get the fork, and then we can do the twiddly thing so it looks fancy in the bowl. No, doesn't want to. Let's do it that way. Let's keep twiddling it around and all the bits will fall off, and then we can take a picture. That's not working out well, that's not working out. Give it a bit of a shake. That's a bit better. That's a bit better. Although I don't think it's going to sit particularly very well in there. No. It doesn't look too bad. And then we want some bits of courgette for the top. Like that. We'll take a picture. And then we'll taste it out of the pan. Oh no, I can taste it out of the pan now, can't I? And then I don't have to do edits. So how does it taste with the courgettes? I think it's going to be delicious. No, do you know? Too much sauce. Is there such a thing? No, because I want some courgette. I'm having arguments from the pasta. Right, so do that, and then scrape up some bits of That's good as that. That's good as that. So just frying it. There's so much flavour in this courgette. It's quite a remarkable thing that it just is courgettes in olive oil and pasta and what we call and a bit of cheese that makes something quite spectacular. But anyway, so that's delicious and a success. I've got another idea for something similar, so that'll be another video.